You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or their affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, good evening. Welcome to the next edition of Haunted Connections here on Parasearch Radio. I'm Neil, as always, and my co-host, as always, is Jane.
Hi, everybody. Good evening.
How are you, Jane, tonight?
I'm quite good, actually.
You excited about leaving on Friday?
I am. It's been a long time coming.
Jane is actually leaving work on Friday, so she's going to be doing medium stuff full time, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going to be self-employed and I'm going to be doing a lot of the stuff that I've wanted to do for a long time, spiritualist stuff.
That's good. Okay, tonight's guest, you probably all know, is Andy Soar from Haunted Magazine. Hi, Andy.
Hello.
Hi, Andy.
How you doing? You all right?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Good. You've been busy today?
I'm always busy.
Okay, just in case there's anyone who's been on the moon for the last how many years who have never heard of you, Andy, tell the viewers and listeners who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I'm Andy Soar. You'll see me on social media as AE Soar, and I'm the designer of Haunted Magazine and have been since 2011. I also am 1/5 of HauntedLive, who you'll see doing the online investigations on Facebook and also on VidiSpace. I also have had some music published on things like the streaming services, Apple Music and Google Play, Amazon. And I've also written a book that's currently with an editor at the minute.
Really? I didn't know about the book.
Wow.
Yeah. Is that a factual book or...?
No, it's a fiction. Basically, it's a story that I started about 4 or 5 years ago now with my son, called 72 Minutes in the Woods.
Yeah.
And it's got hints of supernatural, a small smattering of horror in there, and it's I'm hoping that it's going to be quite an unusual story for people to read.
That's brilliant.
Well, we know a good outlet where you can put your book up for sale.
So I'll be tapping you up.
Yeah.
You look good in those shiny cases you've got.
Sorry?
You look good in those shiny cases you've got now.
Yeah, look, I'm really chuffed with the cabinets, I must admit. They're the bee's knees, I think. Okay, so out of all these things you do you have a favourite that you like doing? Is it the magazine, or is it the investigations, or is it...
Well, I suppose I'd be contractually obligated to say the magazine.
Just in case Paul's watching.
But in all honesty, I think they all tie in very well with one another. It kind of, what started out as more of a hobby type thing, just links in with everything. I mean, my composing title is The Haunted Guy. Yeah. And I wonder where I thought of that idea. But no, I think I've always had an interest in the paranormal, an interest in things supernatural since I was a kid. And I think it's just developed as I've got older. And now that I'm with a circle of people that really are into the same thing, it's just grown and grown. Got back into composing again about 5 years ago. And again, that ties into my son, who was just pestering me for this theme tune to this 72 Minutes in the Woods that I just explained. Yeah. And from that, I just started writing music again after probably a hiatus of about 20 years, which happened when I met my missus, basically. The studio got locked away and we kind of just started family life. But no, so everything kind of developed one by one. And I've been working actually with a ghost hunting organisation. And that's where Paul had seen some of the graphics that I did. And this was way back. This was about 2010.
Yeah.
And we started chatting. Paul's very, very good at kind of getting you to do things that you don't realise that you're actually that good at. And so really, we kind of just developed from there. And to be fair, he's one of my best mates, one of my closest mates. and we do pretty much most things of a haunted capacity together now.
Oh, that's nice, isn't it? It's nice how the field brings people together, doesn't it?
It can do. I mean, it can be quite divisive as well, which is one of his sort of spattered across the way. But in this particular scenario, I don't think I could have had a better way of developing into this line of work, I suppose.
Yeah, and you all have sort of come together, and you've sort of stayed together, and we've done investigations with you quite a few times, and the atmosphere is always so welcoming and friendly and warm, and it's just a real pleasure to go on investigations with you guys.
I really appreciate that. That's exactly the environment that we want. It's almost like a family thing when we kind of do these things. I mean, the Bosworth investigation recently, where we tried experiments, which we'll probably talk about later. We knew the majority of people that were there because we've seen them before at Bosworth, and it really does feel like, because you're connecting to whatever's there, and because you're connecting together, and you're kind of working together, that something else is actually coming forward and it's happening, and that energy is really quite infectious.
Yeah, I know. I love the nights when you come up here, I must admit, because on the whole, it tends to be the same people, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Or the heart of it is the same. You're the same guests, and it's really nice, and everyone knows everybody. It's really nice, and like I say, that's the same as Bosworth Hall. It's just a nice atmosphere.
Yeah, it is, and you almost, I really look forward to it because you meet up. It's like meeting up with family, isn't it? Who you've not seen for a while, and it's just so nice to sort of catch up with people and have a chat and see what they're doing, and it's not necessarily like your normal ghost hunt where you're perhaps sitting in a room with strangers and nobody talks, and then you also go to one room and then you and nobody really sort of engages with each other, but everybody engages with everybody else there, and it doesn't matter what group you're in, who you're with, every group and every sort of room that you go in, it's just fun, and it's just, and it's nice and professional as well. Everybody says what a good evening it's been.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I must admit the Haunted Live nights are very professional, but there is one rule now, Andy, isn't there? Paul doesn't make the tea.
No.
Any jokes?
I don't know whether he's some kind of alchemist or something, but green tea, real tea, and milk do not go together in one pot.
I must admit, it did look disgusting.
Even out of politeness, I wouldn't have drunk that. That was
So tell us about the live feeds and Vidispace. How's that going?
Well, we're on, again, another bit of a hiatus, really. I think we did four shows that are still on there, which the one that we did with you and Barry Guy was there, which was fantastic, where we had the table moving and that kind of thing. We've also had Moira Furness, which is certainly my favourite one, simply because of what we captured on film. We did the one over at, I can't say the title of it, so the one we did in January with Barry John, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
So the 4 episodes that's been on there, and he's driving, of course. The 4 episodes that's been on there, very well received. Really enjoyed doing them. The one we had scheduled was, I think it was Staveley Hall. Unfortunately, I couldn't edit down because, firstly, there wasn't enough footage from the night, but secondly, we had an element that had come on, and again, this other side of the paranormal reared its head, of people being trolling and abusive to the guests that we had with us, and it really left such a sour taste. Yeah. Not only about the night itself, but the investigation and what we could put onto the show, and I just didn't feel it was right or appropriate to do that. So we had a bit of a break. Summer holidays are always a bit of a hefty time for us. We're all family people. Yeah. We've got all the holidays and all that kind of thing to deal with. We've got my lad that's going into his GCSE year and all sorts of exam prep and all this kind of stuff. So we kind of had a bit of a breather over the summer months and then got back into it. I mean, the main one for me that really kind of was fantastic was the solstice. that we did at Bosworth. I'm starting to really like the solstice events that we do there, because there's always something different in each one. And we had the wonderful Jane Harris there as well, who was fantastic on the night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. We were there.
You were.
Yeah, it's always a good night. Paul, I'm reading the comments now. Paul says, I am listening.
I'm honoured.
Stevenson. Paul Rook says, don't worry about it, Paul. He tells everyone. I've heard that's what his next article is going to be about. Yeah, it's all good fun now.
It is. I mean, I think the great thing about what we do as Haunted Live is that, first and foremost, we trust one another. So if we're getting into a situation where stuff's happening, we know that we're not affecting that.
Yeah.
It's that. Whatever activity or phenomenon is taking place, we can take it seriously.
Yeah.
And some of the little gadgets and gizmos that we use, and we do like using gadgets. I know some want to go back to basics. I'm not in favour of back to basics. I think if you've got equipment that might or might not be able to connect to something, let's just try it. Let's just see if it works. But I think we know that when stuff's happening, that's happening for real. So the people catching recently is just fantastic.
Yeah. Going back to the point about you said you had quite a bit of abuse in the comments on one of your feeds. We had that, and that's why I went to a closed group, because I weren't going to put up with it. So
No.
Unfortunately, these trolls, I don't understand them, to be honest, but they're just evil people, aren't they?
It's just unacceptable. You wouldn't talk to your next door neighbour like it, or some might, but most ordinary people wouldn't. So why do you think it's appropriate to get behind the keyboard and start behaving in such a manner? I just think it's wrong.
Yeah, it's definitely wrong.
And
Sorry, go on.
We've seen a lot of it of late. It's been a summer of shenanigans, really, for some of the paranormal workings, and it's not been very nice to watch it sometimes. I mean, because we are in quite a fortuitous position, people do get in touch with us quite. They think there's something wrong, or if there's something that's been written that's either fabricated, or the people have just been ripped off. So we kind of get a lot of activity coming through to us on that, and then we kind of feel the weight of responsibility to get involved. We shouldn't always, but the majority of times, you know what? We're probably one of the bigger voices out there, and we do have a duty of care to the people that really get involved with what we do.
Yeah, I definitely think the magazine has got a good standing in the paranormal field. So, and you, like you said, you sometimes are the only person that people can go to. So do you enjoy sort of taking people's arguments on?
Me personally, no, not particularly. I'm probably the more diplomatic out of the two of us. I think if Paul, he actively gets involved, but he wants my steer on it as well, so we can get a right, balanced and measured approach to whatever content comes out from that point.
Yeah.
I think wherever possible, we want to do what's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And that, if the right thing to do isn't even in our favour, we'll still try and do the right thing. Because at the bottom line, that's where we have that responsibility. And we don't put all this stuff in the magazine, because the magazine is totally neutral with that. The magazines are all about these great stories from our great writers. Yeah. And we've got a good army of them now from both sides of the Atlantic. We've got great writers from Canada, great writers from the US, great writers here. And that's the people that we want to celebrate with the magazine. But the stuff that happens on social media, well, we definitely... we have a role there. On our group page, we have had some good results. There's some that's ongoing, and some that will never be resolved. And I think that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, definitely. Carrie says, and it's a great magazine.
Oh, thank you.
I think a lot of people do have a lot of confidence, don't they, in the way you approach things and sort of your credibility. And I think when in the recent thing that was sort of recently highlighted regarding the sort of the welded door, a lot of people came to you, didn't they? And it was, I think, the way you approached it in sort of a very professional way, and sort of in a sort of an open way where it wasn't confrontational, but it was very professional. And I think a lot of people admired that. I've seen a lot of the feedback, and a lot of people did admire that.
We tried to be. I mean, there's a lot of facets to that particular story. It's not one that I'll go over elaborate on tonight, but certainly there was things that were completely not right about this particular article. When we asked the questions, the abuse that came back was foul, really unpleasant, targeted individuals that had no bearing on this particular story. So immediately the alarm bells were ringing that there's more to this and something's not right. And then when you're getting 40, 50, 60 things in your inbox, all relating to this, people that were there even, then hang on, there's stuff not right about this. And we had documented pictures that pinged back. There was somebody that did an investigation there on behalf of somebody else that supposedly couldn't go there. And it was just all a mess. It's all unnecessary.
Yeah.
You know what? If this particular organisation called itself an attraction, all of this goes away because that's what it is. That's all
right.
it is.
That's right. Okay, we'll move on from there anyway. So I've had a question. What are your plans? What's Haunted Live's plans for 2020? Do you have things laid out that far ahead?
Yeah, well, we don't necessarily have much more than a couple of months in front of ourselves normally, but yes, next year is looking quite promising. I mean, I don't know how much I can say with regards to it, but it has been announced on Twitter that we're looking to work with the Tennessee Rave Chasers next year, who also had a project over in the US called HauntedLive, which was a mix of social media and live feeds. And we've kind of chatted with them before in the magazine. We had their Haunted Towns when it wasn't even released in this country, and we've also had the Haunted Live project, which was on the cover, I think, of issue 21, if memory serves me. So we've always had quite a good relationship with them, and so the idea of Haunted Live and Haunted Live joining up for a few events is tantalising. And there's so many places in this country that obviously both of us would like to explore. I can't wait for that opportunity. It's going to be fantastic.
I did read that about them coming over and working with you.
Yeah.
I'm really excited because I used to enjoy watching them on TV.
It's like a twinning association, isn't it?
Haunted Live twin with Haunted Live.
Yeah. Well, they're very gadgety as well, aren't they? And they also have great fun. They have a great bond together. A lot of the energy that they carry together, you can just see they're friends. They're really good friends, and we hope we kind of operate in a not too dissimilar manner, to be fair.
Yeah, I think you do. I think it's so obvious how good friends you five are when you're investigating.
And what good fun as well.
I must admit, it'll be a laugh.
Yeah,
there's going to be banter, isn't there? There's always going to be banter.
It's going to be a laugh. Eddie Frey is saying, will you be going to the next Supernatural event in March?
Oh, you've only just announced in the last couple of days, haven't you? I would not like to say for definite, but I would pretty much like to. We've not had the conversation myself and Paul yet, but I mean, after the last one, which was fantastically organised, and such a rich bunch of people that was there as well. I can't see us not doing it, but I wouldn't want to lay my hat down, commit to it until I've at least had a conversation with Paul with regards to that.
Paul's made a comment on the chat. He says, our beards are better. Is it going to be a competition of the beards? Are you all going to grow beards just when they're over here?
I'll be honest with you, I'm definitely not going to be growing a beard. One month, it was one of these Movember things, and I tried to grow a moustache, and I just looked like some kind of 1970s porn star. It was just ridiculous. And it's the last thing that I want to be seen as online or in any kind of content. So I personally won't do that, but certainly Paul himself, he'll have a beard of distinction, no doubt.
Well, Paul's still trying to grow his, isn't he?
Yeah, there's more silver in it.
I'm testing Paul.
Yeah, get him some of that back to black with beard.
Let's talk a bit about the Supernatural Fair on Saturday, because we were there, and I think it was a fantastic day.
Well, initially it was the pair of us. Paul unfortunately fell poorly, and when he does fall, he really has to take good care of himself. So, yeah, I was a little bit edgy coming down. I didn't know what to expect from it. Paul's normally the one that is much more of an orator than I am.
Yeah.
But I'm a little bit more reserved, probably the teller to his pen or whichever way around it is. And so getting set up there, there was a vibe from the moment you walked in. There was a very friendly atmosphere. But more importantly, both Karen and Eddie, they just organised it like clockwork. It was just professional from the offing. Everything was laid out correctly. And it was a pretty good venue, to be honest. And certainly, considering some of the mixed weather we had, I thought it was fantastic. We had the right kind of people coming through the door, great conversations with people at the tables. That's exactly how it should be done. And that's the blueprint to a successful supernatural fair, in my opinion. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Karen and Eddie did a fantastic job.
Yeah, it was a great day. Everybody who I've spoke to had a really, really good day. And they praised people on the stalls because they were helpful and knowledgeable. And, even when people were asking questions, people were sort of going out their way to be kind and helpful. And it just makes such a difference.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah. Paul says, everyone I've spoken to read the fair said how fantastic it was. Full credit to Karen, Eddie, and all at Keep Paranormal.
Absolutely. Seconded.
So we're very much looking forward to the next one.
Plus, it was nice that I was sandwiched between you and Jane Harris, so... Where else would I rather have been?
In speech as well, didn't you?
Your talk. I did a talk.
Yeah. Everyone kept saying to Neil, "Have you been planning your talk? Have you been practicing?" He went, "No, I'm just winging it." Went really well in the didn't it?
I tend to wing everything in my life. I must admit, I did sit down because I left the Centre to you 5 girls. You did a live feed, and I did sit down on the laptop thinking, okay, I'm going to write something, but I thought, no, I'll see what they're getting up to. And I thought, no, I'll just wing it like I normally do. So, and it seemed to go down okay.
Yeah, it was good.
There was no tomatoes being thrown.
No.
So we had another comment in. What's the best piece of evidence? I know the answer to this one. What's the best piece of evidence that you've captured?
Oh, it's definitely the Moira Furnace apparition. Yeah.
Amazing, I must admit.
It's something which it was mind-blowing for me. If you look at it, it kind of feels like we expected it, but we just didn't. I mean, on the night itself, Jason had spotted something at Moira Furnace in this cobbler's part of the museum. Unit. I mean, there's not enough room for a lot of people to go and line up behind it or try and pop out of windows or anything like this. But he spotted, whilst filming, this white light that had kind of just moved from right to left and disappeared, which in itself you'd think, nice little bit of evidence, don't know what that is, but not jump up and down the best thing we've ever done. And I'd been editing it for the first one. And I left my computer in zoomed in mode. So the audio is still going. I asked out, Simon asked out, and boom, there's this apparition or figure or whatever it is that seems to peer out to the side of the glass and then move back in again. And it for me, it was quite startling because I certainly wasn't expecting it to be there. We didn't see it on the night. And so that was it. I went back to it, looked at it closer, zoomed in again. Yeah, that's it. So as I zoomed out, I was thinking, well, it's got to be one of ours. But the light pointing at the glass, we're all behind the light. And even if one of us was to just stick our head out and have a look at it, surely with the light pointing in that direction, you wouldn't see us because we're behind the light.
Yeah.
So this, and plus that, you've only got half a silhouette. It's not showing both sides of the glass. There's no other line of it on the pane of the glass. And it's fantastic footage. I mean, if anybody does want to go and see it, if you go on the HauntedLive page, it's actually right at the very top. And it's showing the moment that you go on there. And to be honest, it's one of my favourite captures. I mean, the table that we had at your place was fantastic. Yeah. because that moved of its own accord. The only problem with that is we didn't have anything locked up at the bottom to show our feet, but the way that paper moved, you couldn't do that with your feet anyway.
No.
And then obviously the doll that we captured there as well, moving of its own accord. But this one for me was just wow.
It was probably one of the best captures I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The figure at Moira. Does that come with a tinge of disappointment as well, though, that you didn't actually see it on the night, so you can go and investigate what you've seen?
Well, maybe. If I'm honest with you, I think with anything that you do with the paranormal, the supernatural, it chooses to show itself to you. Whether you can see it or not, that's up to you sometimes. And perhaps we weren't supposed to see it on the night. Perhaps it was a thing that we were supposed to find out afterwards. I don't know. It would be lovely to have seen it and gone immediately down there, all guns blazing. But to be fair, we have footage still recording on that bit, and nothing else happened after that point, apart from another little loss of light.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, some people would find it frustration. I don't. I actually think I was supposed to find this in the edit suite. I wasn't supposed to find it when I was there. But we were all in such good spirits, and, we had some good banter on the night. Perhaps that energy as well helped to kind of get that manifestation. But I don't know. I suppose because it's already happened, you can't really think like that, I suppose.
Yeah, I always think things are meant to happen anyway. And like you say, you're meant to see things when you're meant to see it. Yeah. You were meant to see it when you're editing it. So
I think sometimes, though, we do ask spirit, don't we, to do things for us. And I think sometimes we're not always in a position to see it or hear it, even though they are actually doing it. And I know we've captured before up here, we've asked spirit to sort of tap on a glass dome here. And although we couldn't see it or hear it, we actually had the stickman going, and the stickman actually raised his hand up and touched the glass. So although we captured it on the stickman, we couldn't actually physically see it or hear it ourselves. So I think sometimes they do what we ask, but we're not always in a position to sort of capture it, are we? To see it or hear it. But capturing something like that is just brilliant.
Yeah. Totally agree. And actually, when we were at the centre the other night with the guests, we had the little recorder going, the little 7-second recorder that we've got from Andy over at Infrared. Yeah. Now, we did not hear some of the stuff that was going on in the room, but replay it back and we've got people walking around the table. Now, we know that we're not hearing the shufflings that are on there. We know it's not the kit because we moved out of that room and it didn't have the same results. So something in that room, and it got pretty dark towards the end of that night, something in that room was walking around the table. And that's the kind of thing that really absolutely fascinates me.
I must admit, that voice recorder you got from Andy, that just records for 7 seconds, is quite amazing.
It's astonishing, isn't it? I think it works alongside some of the older technology. Perhaps it's the recording rate that's to blame for it. I don't know, but certainly the results that we're getting from it are fantastic.
Really good stuff up in Bosworth Hall, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, we had the breath noises, we've had whispers, obviously with the knocks that we were getting that we were kind of inaudible to us at the time, but we were getting the knocks quite freely.
Yeah,
and the movement. It was certainly in that room and there. It was just bonkers.
Yeah, it needs a couple of adjustments to me. I'm not nitpicking. I think when you press the button, you can hear it click, can't you?
Yes.
And when you press it to stop it, it clicks. I think if he does away with that, gets a way around that,
to stop the clicking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's really good. I'm quite impressed with that.
Yeah.
So if Andy's listening.
Yeah, so I'll write that down. We want to click rewatching.
You know when the next trial one. So how's the magazine going then, Andy?
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Well, issues, the last two in particular, have been our top selling issues. I mean, with regards to issue 23, there was a bit of an indulgence with that one because once I'd seen Hellier by Greg and Dana Newkirk, I knew very much I wanted them involved with that magazine. And we were very, very fortunate that they agreed to do it. So that for me was like a little bit of fanboying involved in that one, no doubt about it. The cover is very much an X-Files type cover, which I grew up with and absolutely adored.
Yeah.
And so that one there, that basically, we obviously go to print and we print a sizable amount these days. So that one there had pretty much paid for itself before it was even released.
Really?
That was fantastic. So that one there did very, very well for us. But the latest one, it's basically, it's just a joy to be able to kind of see Word of the Unknown Ghosts, the brilliant seminal book from the 70s, 80s, come back. And for us to be able to not only support Osborne with the launch we've got on the 19th at Bosworth Hall, but for us to be able to kind of run a bit more freely and design in that way and kind of produce the magazine in a very different style, which was quite a design challenge for me.
Yeah.
That was probably my favourite moment of the last few years. And seeing this one come out in print exactly the way that it was on my computer screen for the very first time, cover to cover, well, it was everything really. It was just, that was a moment for me. Really, really.
Oh,
That's good. A lot of people are saying yes, they can see that short video because Paul said that they might struggle to see it. And Paul said can't wait to read the article about the Parasearch co-owners. That will be an amazing article.
Okay.
Is that in the next one then, Andy? You don't know.
You see, what tends to happen is Paul gets the articles, I get to design. So once they hit my box, that's when I'm all over it. So if they're on their way, that'll come to me and I'll be on them.
Okay, that's good. That sounds good. Paul said 19th of October, VIP book launch with a classic ghost hunt. So tell all the listeners about that one then. What's happening there?
Well, it's the book launch itself. We've kind of got a few flyers out on social media. The night itself is going to involve, well, it's always in the spectacular venue, Bosworth Hall. You're going to get drinks, you're going to get dinner, you're going to get a VIP screening of Borley Rectory, which is coming out onto Blu-ray, I believe, from Nuclear Sound. That in itself is a treat. And then it's the book launch with regards to All About Ghosts as well. And if you actually do manage to grab a copy of this book, you'll actually see there's guides on how to perform a classic ghost hunt.
Yeah.
We're aiming to use some of the techniques that they're using there, maybe soup up some little ones as well with the kind of modern stuff that we use now, but to try and really emphasise the original stuff that would have been the investigation tools at the time in which this book was published. It's a fascinating read. Every school library across the country would probably have had this book stolen. It's now back in print. It's just fantastic, and it's great to be involved with it.
I must admit, I have read it.
have you?
I've read it now, yes.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Kerry says, awesome film. I went to the trailer launch at the College of Physical Research book launch of the Enigma of Rosalie. Ashley Thorpe did a great job on the film.
Yeah, I mean, he's an unusual type of filmmaker, and it's part and part live action, and then he kind of does it on a kind of scene by scene or even step by step way of putting this stuff together. So it's got this really unique feel about it, almost kind of in the way that if you went back to the 20s and 30s, the Fritz Langs and all that kind of thing, it's got that kind of 20s vibe about it that you're just not going to experience these days. And because of the subject matter as well, it's just great, isn't it? And Bruce Shearsmith's obviously involved in that project as well, who we had in the magazine.
Cool. So you got Paul says there's drinks, reception, dinner, speaker panel, film screening. So there's so much going on that day at the fantastic Bosworth Hall. So I'd recommend anyone if you're interested in paranormal, to contact you guys and book your space.
Absolutely, and we can do accommodation as well. With it being a hotel, if it comes through us, we can sort things out together, as though it's all one part of the package.
Yeah, it's awesome. Apart, but not in room 216, eh?
Oh, I wasn't going to say any room numbers.
Oh,
Okay.
I don't want to be in that room.
Can you remember the week when we were in there?
Of course I can. To be honest, I'm not a person that's ever so sensitive to things, but I think I'm becoming more sensitive as we do more of the
Yeah.
investigations. But I saw things in there without a shadow of a doubt. I knew we were in the dark, but I saw certain bits of movement that wasn't very nice, and certain things popping into my head that I felt the need to say. It's just all an experience, and that room was an experience from the moment we walked into it.
Was. I must admit, I saw you in a different light that night. I'd never seen you like that before.
It was unnerving because I think because you normally try and rationalise everything. It's
Yeah.
the easiest to rationalise it, make the scientific approach and so on and so forth. The more we do these things, the more openness you kind of get to what's there. And I certainly know that since seeing something for the very first time at East Drive a while back, I'm starting to experience things that I previously would not have experienced. And the case, it's not a case of wanting it. It's a case of this is happening, and I'm not necessarily in control of when that's happening. And this particular instance, that was a fairly dark object that we saw in that room.
Yeah.
And what popped into my mind was strange and bizarre, considering the setting of where we actually were. And the previous time we investigated it, none of that had shown itself.
Mm. But that's another good thing about Bosworth Hall, isn't it? It's always different.
Bosworth unravels.
Yeah.
It unravels every time. We're getting all sorts of stuff coming through that we wouldn't have expected previously. And some of these experiments that we did as well on Friday the 13th, they were strange. The results were fascinating. I mean, they weren't the most scientific of experiments, but blimey, did we get some results.
Yeah, they were interesting.
Yeah, they were. I enjoyed the salt pot thing where everybody got the same salt pot. That did make me smile.
It was strange, wasn't it? It was just spooky. So for any listeners with regards to that, it was a very simple experiment. Friday the 13th, we were just basing an element of luck around these particular experiments to see if you are more unlucky on Friday the 13th. And we had 4 or 5 different experiments with a view to try and connect with one of the spirits that were in Bosworth Hall that we know actually lost the hall due to gambling. So this particular experiment, the salt experiment, I had 3 containers, 2 of which had salt, 1 of which had sugar, and all of which were open. So the guest was blindfolded. I moved the stuff around in a fine lady kind of way, and all they had to do was just to knock one of the objects over. So they're more likely to get salt because there was obviously 2 in 3 chance. So, and it's salt. So that's absolutely fine. We've kind of covered that one. So then it goes to the next one. Now, again, switching all the stuff around, changing the blindfold, all that kind of thing. Lo and behold, they also knock over the exact same salt pot.
Yeah.
So already there's a little bit of spooky about it. And then we go to the third and final person, and I was doing a conscious effort to try and make sure that person would be more unlikely, just to try and switch it wherever possible. But lo and behold, picks exactly the same salt pot. So all 3 occasions, the same salt pot was knocked over.
Yeah.
Which I think Kieran, who was there, Kieran O'Keefe, I think he worked out something like
He worked out the odds.
Yeah, it was spectacular odds, really, for all 3 had that response. It was just strange.
And I think even Kieran was quite interested in that one as well, wasn't
he? Definitely. And it's something that I'd like to try again in different conditions, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it was good how he sort of brought a different mix of things to the table, didn't he, to the night with his slightly different little experiments and things that he was doing, and that was it was really interesting.
Did you enjoy investigating with Kieran?
Yeah, do you know what? I think me personally, I was a little apprehensive because a lot of Friday the 13th was based on this idea that I'd kind of talked about with the guys of these experiments. And I think most of that was on my head, really. And that little bit of extra pressure. I know there's a bit of banter at the beginning, so if it's good, it's all of us. If it's bad, you can blame him.
Yeah.
Well, I did feel a bit of weighty responsibility there. So the one night in which you've got these less than scientific experiments, you invite an actual parapsychologist who's got an interest in this sort of thing. so from my perspective, it was like no extra pressure then. But he was fantastic, and the way he's depicted on telly versus the way that he's actually is in person are just two very, very different things. He's absolutely fantastic. Makes you feel really at ease. He's got new ideas to put in away, trying something. We talked about, I think it was Singapore theory on the break, which is setting the room out to kind of give the feel, the time in which an event's happened. Now, I didn't know about that, but that's how I actually dressed the Ptolemaic room in Bosworth for the event. So it was fascinating, illuminating, and really great to have worked with him on the night. And I'd work with him again in a heartbeat. Fantastic.
It was a joy.
Yeah, it was.
Somebody called Jason Wall says it works. It was a team effort.
Well, it absolutely is. Every time we go out and do these things, it's a team effort. And I think we have to try something different. We don't want the same thing day in, day out. And the great thing about working in the paranormal is generally you don't get the same result twice. You always get something different happening with different people at different times. So I think the fact that stuff really happened that we were kind of arguably a little bit more in control of was fascinating. And I think most if not all guests went away happy that night, which was great.
I'm sure they did. My one regret on that night is Kieran wasn't in that room when we were.
Yes.
Bedroom, because I'd have loved to see his reaction to what we were getting.
Yeah, it was strange. To be honest with you, it's a room that really didn't feel intimidating the first time I went in there previously, and this time it's made me a lot more apprehensive about going in there because of what I actually physically felt in that room. It was just strange.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So, of course, Haunted Live do have hold exclusive fortnightly events up here at the centre.
Next one's on the 9th.
The 9th, that's sold out, isn't it?
Yeah. 27th's already started filling up, so if anybody does want to attend that one, they need to get in pretty sharpish on that, I think.
Yeah, that's good. And it is always a good, fun night.
We love it. We absolutely love it. Because, again, because it's not necessarily building all the time that gives the activity. It might be the objects that give the activity. Even on the quiet nights, something different happens. And the fact is everybody gets involved. There's nights where we step back and the guests kind of just do it. There's nights where we get involved and we get all sorts of different activity, and it's just great. And I think, again, because it's a small venue, we all know what we're there to kind of get out of it. We all want to find something out. Mm-hmm. We generally get something different every time. I mean, more recently it seems to be getting a little bit darker. And I think we've got James from HauntedLive and Dead Insight. He's joining Vicky for a live feed this weekend, isn't it?
This Sunday, they're doing 12 hours up here.
Well, I think it's the perfect time for them because it's particularly dark, so I'm sure that's going to be absolutely fun for them.
I'm sure they'll have fun after what we got on Sunday night. We did a lot of sounds, and that was quite scary, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, it was starting that way last week, let's be honest. It started to get a little bit darker.
Yeah, something's changing. Paul says, Kieran's psychic drawing translator app in the Dysart room was interesting. How did you find that one?
Very. Well, I'm still trying to find the app.
Yeah.
The fact using OCR on a kind of automatic writing to try and decipher something that may or may not be there. I mean, well, let's be honest, the language was a bit fresh, and I do apologise to anybody that I offended on the night. But
that was just Jane's bit, weren't it?
It was fascinating what came out. To actually even get close to a literal translation from just a kind of scribble on a bit of paper, effectively. So, fascinating. I'd love to know what the actual app was that he was using, because that's something that really does merit further study.
Definitely. I thought the most interesting thing is Jane, who's a medium, Viv, who's sensitive, and Lucy was sensitive. They got Kieran come up with something, didn't he? Words.
Yeah.
And Vicky, who's not sensitive at all, hers didn't make any sense at all.
No.
So,
She didn't seem to get affected either,
No.
did she?
so
Whereas we all seemed to get affected by the man, but
I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah, the ones that were sensitive in there were the ones getting grief.
Yeah,
For the rest of us, it was quite quiet, but they were actually getting the grief. So
Yeah.
that was fault. That
about-
was Phil's fault.
I just thought it was hilarious. These 4 women kneeling down in front of all the men.
yes. Who suggested them to kneel down?
Me.
Phil.
Yeah, I just thought it'd be funny. Sorry.
Yeah, it was.
No, seriously, something in my head said to me, they need to kneel down.
But there we go again. Something in your head. Something in my head told me a certain predicament in the room that we mentioned earlier on.
Yeah.
It was quite vivid. It came to me, and I just needed to say it out loud, and that in itself is quite interesting.
Yeah, it's all good stuff. Unfortunately, we can't come at the Halloween one to Bosworth Hall because we've got an event up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're travelling. We're travelling.
Okay.
So let's talk about the actual magazine is an award winner, isn't it?
We've won awards on I think it's 2 or 3 occasions now. Yeah, it's we've had Higgy Pop last year. There was a different convention that also awarded us with it as well.
Okay.
3 awards so far. I don't know where we are with. I know Higgy Pop's doing some more awards.
Yeah.
Honest with you, if we're nominated, brilliant. If we get anywhere, brilliant. But I think we're now in a real good rhythm with the way the magazine looks and feels. We've got the right people writing for it. I think we've got a nice level of sort of the celebrities with actual ghost accounts. Every time I get something in my Dropbox from Morgan Knudsen or from Mike Cavell or Richard Estep or from Penny on Parasearch, I just know that I'm going to be able to do something immediately with it. So it's in a good place now. And I think it's really grown over the last probably 3-4 issues. So if something happens with regards to another award, brilliant. That's not really the be all and end all of it. I want to make the best magazine that we can make and also have it set. So that's really good.
That's cool.
So we've just had the latest edition out, haven't we? So for anybody who's looking forward to the next one, when will the next magazine be out?
It'll be around November time. We were hoping to kind of get something for October, but in all honesty, I don't want to rush the magazine until we've got the right blend of articles in there. So it's going to be November time now. And I've got no idea of what the cover will look like. I've got an idea of who I would like on the cover, but we just have to see as and when that develops.
So do you just get inspiration when you get the articles then?
Sometimes it'll be a title that sparks the inspiration. And sometimes the article is so literal that you have to kind of take the clues that are in that article. I think if you talked to me about the same thing 2 years ago, I was just designing away feverishly with actually a bit of disregard to what was the article was saying, other than the content style of what it was actually referencing. But now I'm very conscious. I want a magazine that you're going to pick up. Yes, you're going to like the look of it, but you're going to read it, because the kind of articles we have now and the kind of writers that we've got, these are just fantastic articles. They are different to what you'll read in a conventional magazine. We're very consciously not Fate and Fortune. It's not set out in that way. We've got, if we take the last one, for example, the Pervert Poltergeist, you're not going to find that everywhere. But what a fantastic read that was. We've got Gacy in there, the serial killer. It's just such an eclectic blend that some pop straight away and I know exactly what I'm going to do. Some I have to read the article a couple of times before I kind of get to the point where I think, I know what I'm doing with it now.
Yeah.
And there's some magazines that don't come together until the very last plan that Paul puts together. So I'll say to him, I'm not feeling the magazine. And then he'll just change it round. And all of a sudden, the magazine pops. And that's the thing with Haunted. It's definitely a two-man job. in terms of the production side, because we're kind of yin and yang. We sometimes it's me that's very much more confident with the way the design of the magazine's going. Other times it pulls clues to kind of get it back together in a different shape. So, I mean, with November, I don't know how we're looking with regards to that, but I know that we're not going to be doing anything like seasonal-based content. There's still one or two things that we do include from time to time, but when we've released magazines around seasonal times, they've generally been so... Once the season's gone, you don't go and read it again.
Yeah, that's right.
The articles we've got now, you can read them anytime.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about it.
It is really good read, I must admit. Paul says the writers are absolutely brilliant.
Undoubtedly. I think we're in a rich vein of it at the moment. We've got a good bunch of writers that are really in their groove and so talented. I mean, some of these stories and how they get to them, it's just fantastic.
It's fascinating. Richard says, do you have a link for the subscription? I'm sure Paul will do that.
Yes. It's
Paul, sorry,
bit.ly, so bit.ly/haunted magazine. And that gets straight over to the print shop and you can subscribe from there.
Okay. Paul Stevenson says, Haunted Magazine is not just for Halloween, it's for life.
That's so true. I'm sure I need that tattooing on me somewhere.
I won't say where.
No. That's another joke.
Yeah, you two seem to work so well together.
Yeah, I mean, there are times where we'll kind of like lock arms, but it's very rare. So sometimes he'll come out with a title, and I just think, no, that's just so wrong. You can't put that in there. Yeah. In fact, there was even one in this one that I was arguing, and I still lost that argument on this occasion. And it's in the magazine. I just think, no, you can't. But that's the way it goes. Paul's stamp on this is that he likes to have a catchy headline. I mean, that's what got it on Have I Got News for You? But sometimes, if it's something that's quite a reverential article, it's quite serious in tone, it doesn't need a comedy banner on it. So they're the only times that really kind of...
So you have to rein him in sometimes then?
Yeah. Oh, God, you've seen the gags that come out. Gee.
Yeah.
If we were a live show, we'd have been taken off by now sometimes. But blimey. No, I mean, what's great is that more often than not, what we do is we get to that right balance between us. And sometimes if my design's just completely wrong, you just say, oh, I'm not quite right with this, just let's try something different. And we do, and it works better.
It's good that you can do that. You work as a team.
But I think that's reflected in the quality of the magazine, isn't it? How well they work together and how good the work is.
Thank you. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, I know it sells really well up here. And everyone comes in, they say, oh, is that the latest edition?
It's a bit of a hidden gem. I mean, a long time back, it was in Smiths. Smiths cost so much for us to try and do anything with. Print costs were rising at the time, and we just couldn't afford to keep going that way, so we went digital for a bit. It was a labour of love to get us back into print. There's no doubt about it, and certainly for the first couple, they were not something that was massively profitable at all. But people started to see it, and people started to like it, and then people started to buy it. And I think we started getting the odd sort of names from the States as well, which didn't harm us at all. People like Ghost Brothers, Nick Groff, Katrina, and it started to grow in exactly the right direction. And I think from those editions, we've just kind of moved on and to now where we're at a point where I just think this is a magazine that if you did see it in the shop, you'd just buy it anyway. But we want to distribute it to people that are passionate about it in the same way that we're passionate about it. So we've got an outlet in the States that's doing things. We've got outlets like yourself. And one of the things that we'll be developing in 2020 is that we want to also try and kind of get involved with some of the smaller teams whereby they can advertise in our magazine, which is an international magazine. It's also viewed online. And we've had up to 100,000 people viewing online previously, where they can advertise in here. And in return, they'll also get some magazines back that they can sell. Yeah. So that's what we'll look at developing in the new year. But we've always been about trying to champion people that are really trying to do well for themselves in this, and not being Machiavellian about it, which quite a lot of people are.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's a good idea, and I think that'll take off well. The little teams. I think places and people need to support the little teams. It's not always about the big dart and place. It's like the big locations, isn't it? It's the little locations.
Yeah,
are important as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, okay, we've only got a few minutes left.
Really?
That hour's gone quick again. It
normally doesn't.
These hours go.
Brilliant,
So it's been a great chatting to you again, Andy. I must admit, I've seen this week. I've seen you Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, until tonight.
I think I've seen you more than once.
Adi says, "Can you send the link to the magazine?" I'll do that later, Adi. So it's been great talking to you as always. It's always fun watching your live feeds.
Fantastic.
And
thank you.
I do, and I'm not just saying because I'm talking to you. I do enjoy reading the magazine.
Yeah, very much so.
And of course, like we just said, Hickey Pop Awards. The nominations have started tonight. So please pop along to the link on Facebook and get your nominations in. Obviously, vote for Haunted Magazine in the magazine section. Please vote for Parasearch Radio in the podcast section.
Yep.
And if you'd like to vote for us,
thanks.
Yep. So we're going to say goodnight now. It's only a couple of minutes. So any final words, Andy?
Final words. No, just stay tuned to everything that we're doing on the Haunted Magazine page. I'm also writing a bit of music as well. I've got a website, thehauntedguy.com. Maybe have a look at that as well if you like synthesizer music and that kind of thing. And also stay tuned for the book, which hopefully will be out before Christmas.
Ooh,
fantastic. Very busy. It's going to be a very busy time.
Always.
Jason says he's very articulate. I can't read the rest.
I think that was a compliment.
No, there's a big thing on the screen. I couldn't read it. I'm not saying he said things that nasty.
I'll take it as a compliment.
Paul Stevens says, "Don't be normal, be paranormal."
Absolutely.
And that's your Haunted Lives catchphrase, which is really good.
It is. It is.
And I remember James come up with a catchphrase for us. He says something like, "Haunted Antiques is making the paranormal normal."
Yeah.
So good catchphrases there. So we're going to say goodnight. Thanks, Andy, so much for being our guest. It's been great, as always. Thanks to Jane for co-hosting.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. It's great to speak to the people who we interview on these programmes.
Yeah, I can't remember who I've got next week, I must admit. I just need to look. I'm sure it's going to be another fantastic show. Thanks for everyone for listening, and we'll see you all again soon.
Yeah, so stay tuned for the next show.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.